Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour DFS DraftKings Countermove preview for UFC 188 from Mexico City. To break down all the elements that you need to win, except outside the daily fantasy pricing part. That's my area. The MMA area, that's Cody Saftik. What's going on, man?
Yeah, same old same. Getting ready for a big pay-per-view here.
All right, so here we go. The deathly triangle of DraftKings pricing versus Countermove pricing versus the odds. I found there wasn't a whole lot. DraftKings and Countermove got on the same page with the odds this week, so there's not a lot of abnormalities. But one thing you're going to find is that I'm not able to pronounce everyone's name properly. So bear with me, and every time that you hear someone's name pronounced incorrectly, you're going to hear... It makes me feel sad inside.
Well, hopefully you get most of these names correct then.
All right, so let's start at the top. This one I can see myself getting wrong because I don't know how this J goes in this dude's name. So I'm going to say Henry Cejudo versus Chico Camus. But yeah, you got X.
Now, Henry, I call him Henry Cejudo, right? But there's other pronunciations to it, but definitely a pass for that.
You think it would be an H because it's a Spanish name.
Well, Cejudo or Cejudo. Cejudo. So absolutely, you are right. But because you hear both of them pretty, I mean, he's American. He's the youngest American to ever win freestyle gold medal at the Olympics.
Ooh.
So he is definitely American. However, his heritage is Spanish. He is from Mexico in that sense. So.
I wanted to start with him because his betting odds are minus 1,000. Yet, he's not like he is the most pricey player on DraftKings, but there's a lot of heavy favorites on this card. So out of all the favorites, I think I would back the guy with the longest odds, right?
Yeah, you actually kind of want to avoid Henry Cejudo.
Oh, why is that?
Well, I think he's going to score well, but the fact that he's minus 10,000, that's big. However, Henry Cejudo is 2-0 in the UFC. He has not finished either of the opponents in the UFC. He's 8-0 altogether. He has not finished an opponent with a winning record in his career. He has never finished an opponent who had a winning record. He's got some TKOs and submissions over guys that were 2-3, 1-2. But as far as guys who are a little more proven, he's not able to finish them. So in his last two fights, he's definitely put on a performance. He's definitely beat them up. However, it doesn't seem like at any point is he going to finish these fights. Chico Camus, at the very least, is very durable. He's a gamer. He's going to fight to the very end. He's not the type of guy that's going to give up on himself. So if he loses, I don't think he's going to get finished. And if I'm going to pay that type of money for Henry Cejudo,
you need a finish.
I kind of really want the finish.
Oh, well, especially with so many high-end players that you're bound to find a finish somewhere. So because the salaries are so miss and match, like it's either stars and scrubs, would it be worth backing the 7,500 if you think it's going to go to a decision?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. Now, the only one problem would be Henry Cejudo, like we mentioned, is an Olympic champion, very good at wrestling. So if he's going to take down Chico Camus a number of times, I don't really like that because if Chico's lying off his back, I'm not going to score a whole lot of points. It is important to note, however, that Henry Cejudo is a wrestler. However, he's also got a pretty reputable amateur boxing background. Sometimes he opts to use his striking. In his first fight in the UFC, he fought Dustin Kimura. I believe he only shot 2 takedowns in that fight. That's not much. In his follow-up performance, I believe he shot 8 or 9 takedowns. So if he comes in with the same game plan as I'm going to stand a little bit, Chico will score. I definitely played him for the 7,500. I saw some value.
Yeah, well, you need to make up money, so you need to give yourself salary cap relief.
He's the type of player that can score you that 30, 40 points that you'd be okay with and is very cheap.
For $7,500, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
Next fight, Augusto Montano versus Cathal Pendred.
Cathal Pendred.
Cathal's the same thing. I'm giving myself a check for that one.
Wow, you are.
No, I'm not. well, listen, it all depends on what the judges have to say. Judges? Didn't work out.
I didn't think you were going to get that one. However, I appreciate you attempting it.
I had to try. I mean, it's written on the sheet.
Yeah, you got the last name, Pendred.
Just because I can't read, it shouldn't be held against me. So it's 10,400 versus 9,000 on DraftKings. Yet on Countermove, Montano is an underdog at 4,700. Yet he's a minus 160 in this fight. Is he a must-have in Countermove?
No, I'm avoiding him completely. I don't think he's going to win the fight to begin with, so I think that Cathal Pendred, in terms of the money line, would be the better bet. But if Cathal Pendred's going to win this fight, he's going to do what Cathal Pendred does best, and that's just grind guys. Put them up against the cage, take them down, make it a really boring fight. He's had a couple fights in the UFC that people have thought to themselves, yeah, he definitely lost that one. And the judges give it to him. He's undefeated in the UFC. The judges give him these decisions. Why? Nobody knows. But a lot of it's because he's grinding guys. He gets on top of them. He holds them down. They get back up. He pushes them up against the cage. So I don't think he's going to score very well. I don't really see much value on Cathal Pendred. Now, the flip side, Augusto Montano, he's the guy with his back against the cage. If he's the guy getting taken down, he's not going to score very much either. So both guys are actually in that price range. I would have taken a small stab at Pendred if he was a little cheaper, but I didn't like his odds on DraftKings and Countermove. The betting line line, I'll probably bet him on the betting line. But in terms of DFS, kind of avoiding this fight.
All right, so you find better value in scrubbier players.
Yes.
That can allow you to afford just better, higher-end players.
Well, these are mediocre guys. Now, usually I try to put a nice little balance. Okay, I got some good guys, some bad guys. It is what it is. Last week, we were able to afford all the guys that we wanted on DraftKings and Kountermove. It was great. This week, can't afford the same guys on DraftKings Kountermove. So I've gone with a different strategy, a little more aggressive, and that's spend the big money on the big guys, and then you have to go with those scrub players, which is why Chico will play favor. But in terms of Montano versus Petr, not really feeling them for both my lineups.
To recap from last week, you absolutely crushed it. Both the DraftKings and Kountermove team, it didn't matter what you played. You could have played cash, you could have played GPP, you could have played heads up against anyone. You would have won.
Yeah,
I won big.
Which is funny because the one guy I thought was going to be my lock was going to score a huge amount of points. It was Ricardo Abreu. And he was the one guy that got 30 points. And everybody else did fantastic. So it was definitely a good lineup. But what the benefit there was that you could get the players that you wanted. They were the right price. There was cheap players like Ben Rothwell who was like, you know what? Sean Jordan, really not that expensive. You're able to afford those players. This time around, the players that will score big are very expensive. So it's going to take more strategy.
Gilbert Melendez versus Eddie Alvarez.
Correct.
Now, on DraftKings, Melendez is 10-3, and Alvarez is 9-1. Yet on Kountermove, they're exactly the same price at $4,800. When you look at the line, Melendez is a minus 175 favorite. Who's right, who's wrong?
Well, this fight could really go both ways, so I don't think anybody's wrong. However, I'm leaning towards Kountermove as having better value on Gilbert Melendez. For the $10,000, there's no way I'm willing to play with him in DraftKings. It's just too expensive. For Kountermove, for $4,800, I can save a little bit of money on my back end by taking someone like Chico Camus or taking someone like an Angela Hill, which we'll get to later. But you can save enough money to afford someone like this. So definitely a decent play here for Gilbert Melendez. He's a former champion in the Strikeforce organization. He's a known gamer. He's got good wrestling. He's got good striking. The only thing that makes me a tad bit weary is that Eddie Alvarez is also a good striker. Eddie Alvarez is also a good wrestler.
So he could get knocked out.
Well, I don't think knocked out, but they could negate each other. They could end up being one of those fights where I can't take you down, and I don't score any points if I'm not taking you down. And then the striking, it's a little slower pace. And let's say I get 60 significant strikes and a takedown. Well, that's only going to score me 32 points. It's not enough.
And you, with the decision win,
yeah,
what, 60? Yeah.
Yeah,
For the price, that's not worth it. But on Kountermove at $4,800,
I like it. Yeah,
you are getting a bit of a discount to take him.
I prefer that, definitely.
Clay Collard versus Gabriel Benitez.
Yes.
Or Gabriel Benitez.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
got
sure.
that one? Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cassius Clay Collard.
Oh, because see, I like the lineage right there.
And
you like him as your bet of the week at minus 250.
Yes.
He's 11-2 on DraftKings, but they're the exact same price on Kountermove. So I'm guessing, with the way that you're going towards Collard, that he's going to appear on both those teams.
Yeah, initially he was just on my Kountermove team, and I decided to go with somebody else on DraftKings. But the more I thought about it, the more I looked at the tape, it was like Clay Collard is he's designed for daily fantasy. The way that he moves forward all the time, he's always throwing lots of volume. If he hits you, he's scoring points. If you hit him, he's 22 years old, so he just shakes it off and keeps on coming. He's got the ability to finish the fight. However, even if he doesn't finish the fight, he's going to score lots of points. His benefit here, though, is that he's fighting Gabriel Benitez, who, in my opinion, is just not really good. So I think he'll be able to completely control him. He'd be able to probably get the finish. And even if he doesn't get the finish, I expect him to just have pure output. So he is a little expensive on DraftKings, but at the end of the day, I decided to double up on Clay Collard.
Okay. Kelvin Gastelum versus Nate Marquardt. 11-7 for Gastelum on DraftKings. 7.7K for Marquardt on DraftKings. And then you look on Kountermove and Kountermove. Gastelum's not that big of a favorite. He's only $5,100. You could squeeze him on there if you think he's going to finish. Does he finish?
Does he finish? I'm saying yes, but a lot of the people I'm talking to don't really seem to believe that. Nate Marquardt's been around for forever, but it's like we talked about last week with Brian Ebersol, and even prior to that with Joe Riggs. There's certain guys that have been in the game for a very long time. Nate Marquardt has 50 fights. Nate Marquardt's been fighting back since 1997. He's been around for a very long time, so I think he's getting a little old in the tooth. Now, that should translate to Kelvin Gastelum, a very young kid, 23, 24 years old.
10-1.
Yes, good wrestling pedigree, coming off his only loss, moving up a weight class here. However, he should have all the goods to make this a very good fight. People are starting to believe, though, that maybe Marquardt's so savvy that Kelvin Gastelum doesn't finish him. He takes him down. He grinds him. I think Kelvin Gastelum's looking to make a statement. I think he's going to come in here and he's going to completely run Nate Marquardt into the ground and pound him. I'm not super feeling the value on DraftKings. On Kountermove, it was easier to justify. However, I opted to pass them both ways just because I'm not fully sold on it.
Main event, Cain Velasquez versus Fabricio Werdum.
Fabricio, I don't know. It seems like you probably would have seen that name at some point.
Yes, yeah.
And Werdum.
Oh, it's Werdum. Is he German?
I want to.
Is he Portuguese?
Yeah, he's Portuguese.
So
actually.
yeah, you get the Germans in there. They all fled to Portugal.
Yeah, he's also. I believe he comes out with a flag that's one side Spain, one side Brazil as well. So maybe he plays that up. Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, weird. But anyways,
I mean, he'd be Portuguese.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is Portugal, but it's probably Portugal and Brazil. But yeah, this is a guy. Listen, Fabricio Werdum is the man. At 37 years old, I think he's probably in for a rough one, and I decided to double up on Cain Velasquez. Extremely expensive in DraftKings. I totally do understand that.
Almost $12,000. He's the most expensive player, and he's by far the most expensive player on Kountermove at $5,800.
Yeah, well, the thing with Cain Velasquez is you kind of... I want to say you know what you're getting, because every time he fights, it's like you know what he's going to do, and he does it. He takes you down, he smashes you. If he doesn't take you down, he'll stand with you, he'll smash you. His cardio never lets up. He never lets up. He's the complete package. People go as far as to say that he's the greatest martial artist of his generation, or at least in the heavyweight division. And you know what? I'm inclined to believe that he's probably the greatest heavyweight. The only problem is that he's injured so often that we don't really see a whole lot of him.
When was the last time he fought?
Well, from Saturday to where his fight is since the last time he fought, it's like 1 year and 7 months, but exactly 602 days. And that's a long time. Imagine all the things that you could complete in your life in 602 days. So
nothing.
Yeah, well, you know, he hurt his knee, he hurt his shoulder, then he had some lingering injuries going around.
Do you worry that he's banged up and he's not the same guy?
If I was, then yes, that's the only thing that would make me hesitate from picking him. And I'm really, really hoping that other people hesitate from picking him and that not as many teams go for him.
Okay.
Because I think Cain Velasquez is a guy, and we talked about this the other day. Knee surgeries in 2015, it's a different ballgame. And he's coming off a knee surgery. He's coming off a dinged shoulder. He's able to fix himself up. I think he's going to be in shape. This is a guy that is known to push the pace. And barring that he is in shape, because there was some pictures surfaced a little while ago, and he was a big, fat dynamo. If he can get back to relatively good shape, then I think he's going to run right through Fabricio Werdum. So I know he's expensive, but as we always talk about, 5 rounds is going to give me an extra 2 rounds to score some points. And to be honest, I kind of think that he finishes Fabricio Werdum regardless.
And a quick finish is really what we're looking for here.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Do you see any more on the card that you think, hey, guaranteed quick finish?
Yeah, so I went with Albert Tumanov. I love that DraftKings started including these Fight Pass fights because you get a lot of value there. Albert Tumanov, good thing about Kountermove is that he was $5,400 on Kountermove because he was fighting a bum in Hector Urbina. Urbina pulls out of the fight. He gets a new opponent, Andrew Todd-Hunter. But the value just stayed at $5,400. And I know that's expensive, but I'm going to take it regardless. Andrew Todd-Hunter, nothing against him. He's 7-0. He's undefeated. He's stepping up in short notice to take this fight. He's a former sniper in the U.S. military. I mean, that's kind of where he's got his claim to fame from, is that he was a decorated sniper. This guy's just really not that good. I believe he's out of Oklahoma. He's just really not that good. His last fight was a win. A little story had come out on the internet where he used to get bullied at this MMA gym where the guys would just come up and beat him up. So he goes to the Army, he matures, he develops, he comes back, he goes to that gym, and he beats them all up, right? So this one guy used to beat him back in the day, Levi Vera, right? They decide, set up a fight, him versus his old nemesis from back in the day, and he crushes him. Great story. But Levi Vera is 18-15-1. He's not that good. Albert Tumanov is killer. But last little point that I have on this fight, and this is the big one to me. This fight's at 170 pounds, okay? Andrew Todd-Hunter, has never fought lower than 185 pounds.
Ooh.
So he's never made 170. Now, if that's not a crazy kicker to begin with, is that he's trying to make 170 for the first time. He's trying to make 170 for the first time on short notice. If that's not enough of a kicker, this guy boxed professionally 2 weeks ago. He weighed in that fight at 197 pounds. So he's not taking care of himself. He's not in physical shape. He's going to spend so much time and energy trying to get down to 170. 1, I think he misses. 2, even if he makes it, he's going to be so zapped. And 3, he's a boxer by trade. That's what he likes to do. He likes to stand a little bit and box. Albert Tumanov is a master of sport in boxing in Russia. He's the real deal. And he's not only just good with his hands, he's good with his feet. I've seen him kick Matt Dwyer, 6'4". Tumanov kicks him in the head a minute into the fight, knocks him out. He has got early stoppage written all over him. For minus 450, which is the betting line, I love it. So for the value on Kountermove and DraftKings, I love it.
So you're loading up on him everywhere.
Yeah, he's a must-have for me.
So would it be worth parlaying the minus 450 with the collared minus 250?
Yeah, I like Tumanov at the 450 collared with the 450, 250. And I also liked Cain Velasquez. I know he's minus 500, but he's another guy that I just feel safe for him. For whatever reason, I know maybe it's a false sense of security because you're believing Cain is the Cain of old, but I believe that he's still that same Cain. So I feel I parlayed 4 guys together, those 3, and Johnny Case. Johnny Case. Tell
me about Johnny Case.
Yeah,
is
Johnny
he on
Case.
The case?
Yeah, Johnny.
The case of winning money?
His nickname's Hollywood. Johnny Hollywood Case. And he's been sleeping in a hyperbaric tent for the past 3 months.
Was he Gilbert Arenas?
He's going for it, all right? And I appreciate that.
He's minus 350.
Yeah, and but you put those 4 favorites together, and those are four pretty big favorites, you could double your money. $100 makes you $200, right?
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah. So you're taking four guys who I'm very strong into. I believe that they'll do well, and there. Now Johnny Case, I would have put him on my DraftKings team if possible, but he was just too expensive.
Yeah.
Flip side to Kountermove, I had him very briefly, but for 5,200, I kind of went in a different direction.
So you're not buying Francisco Trevino?
Francisco Trevino's undefeated at 12-0, and he trains out of Texas, which is pretty close to Mexico. So he's
that's what you're giving him. That's his advantage. He's from Texas.
No, he trains out of a good gym, Team Takedown. Prior to that was at the Macaco Gold team. So he's always had high level training. He's 12-0, which is an undefeated record, and he's coming off a big win, in my opinion, over Rene Forte, who I actually like. So Francisco Trevino, he's got the goods. It's just people don't think he's as good as Johnny Case, and that's fine. But it's really hard to gamble.
You don't think he is?
I don't think he is. But I'm not betting him because I'm not thinking, oh, Johnny Case is going to go there and finish Francisco Trevino. And we want finishes. So the fact is, Trevino's undefeated. He's never been finished. He's a Muay Thai specialist, and this is likely going to be a stand-up battle. And he's durable. So at the very least, I think Trevino won't embarrass himself in there. Johnny Case should get the win. Is it worth putting on DraftKings for that type of money? No. Is it worth putting on Kountermove for 5,200? You could justify that, but you'd have to be really big on him.
So you like Johnny Case as a part of that parlay. Would you bet him by decision to win? You get better odds that way.
Yeah, you know what? I really want to. However, to Johnny Case's credit, he's 2-0 in the UFC. I didn't think he looked good prior to coming to the UFC. He robbed a buddy of mine, EJ Brooks, but, tomato, potato, right? He goes to the UFC, and he's got two really nice finishes inside the UFC. So when people say things about Trevino's undefeated, he's undefeated. Well, you haven't really seen him fight a guy like Johnny Case. So Johnny Case could theoretically get that finish. I don't see it happening, which is the only reason I'm not putting him DraftKings on Kountermove. But I'm not going to specifically bet him by decision because who knows? Young kid, always getting better. If you're living in a hyperbaric
chamber?
Hyperbaric tent, right, for 3 months, I think it really goes to show your commitment to this sport. So he's definitely getting better, and he's a young kid.
Alejandro Perez versus Patrick Williams. Perez is 10-2 on DraftKings. 5-3 on Kountermove. He's only a -170 favorite, though. This is actually one of the closer fights in terms of odds, yet DraftKings doesn't really see it that way, and Kountermove definitely doesn't. They have Perez as a heavy favorite, with Williams coming in at 4-3. Is there any chance that Williams gets an upset?
Yeah, I think Williams definitely has a shot at upset. However, even if he does upset, I don't think that the value is going to be there in DraftKings or Kountermove, simply because he's going to hold them down.
He's a grinder?
He's a grinder. He's a collegiate wrestler out of Arizona State University, which has a fantastic wrestling program. But even just in the squads that he trained on, Cain Velasquez was a member of that squad, CB Dalloway, Ryan Bader, John Moraga, Clifford Starks. They have Eric Larkin. They've got good guys on the team. So I believe that he's going to have a good wrestling pedigree. The flip side to him, he's 0-1 in the UFC. In his debut, he ate a flying knee to the face and it completely KO'd him, right? So people are going to look at Perez and say, okay, he's a Mexican fighter fighting in Mexico.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Especially if it goes to decision.
He's got a little bit of hype behind him. He's got a little bit of experience. And this guy that he's fighting is a scrub by most people's accounts and should probably get finished. So Alejandro Perez would be some value. However, I'm pulling with the upset here. I think that Williams has got a good enough wrestling pedigree that he can dictate the action. He can score the takedown. He can hold him down. He can just neutralize it. The flip side to that is if he scores 6 or 7 takedowns and I'm scoring 14 points, he gets the win. He scores. Yeah. I'm not scoring enough. $4,200 on Kountermove. That was extremely good pricing, but I'm just still not enticed enough to go for it.
You like value otherwise, but you like the plus 140 rather than the DraftKings Kountermove pricing. If you were going to play on Williams.
Yeah, exactly. And with Perez, I'm thinking if this was an addition to the sin bin, I'd say he's a guy to send in there because I'm just not sold on him, first of all. And second of all, when you're fighting a guy who's a one-dimensional wrestler, if you only knew how to wrestle and in your first fight you came out and you decided, I'm going to throw my hands a little bit, and I knocked you out, would your second fight, would you throw your hands a little bit? No, you're going to wrestle. And I expect Williams to get back to his wrestling. He's a good wrestler. If you see him, he's a complete freak athlete, just shredded. So I expect him to just stall the action and get the decision. Only thing that could go wrong is if it's in Mexico and you're holding this guy down, you're not doing anything, they could theoretically give it to Perez as well and just be like, he was throwing punches from his back. So it's a bit of a risky fight.
We always talk about how women's fights are a great source of daily fantasy points because they stand there and wail on each other, and the knockout power just doesn't seem to be there. Unless you're Ronda Rousey, I guess.
Oh my God, yes.
But here we have Torres against Hill. Torres is 11-4 on DraftKings, 5-4 on Kountermove. Angela Hill, 8,000 on DraftKings, Kountermove only 4,200. Do you expect a quick finish in this, or can we take Hill and maybe get some scrub points?
Yeah, well, you are not getting a quick finish out of Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres is 5-0 as a professional. She has not finished any of those 5 opponents. She's 3-0 as an amateur. She did not finish any of those 3 opponents. She won a fight on Ultimate Fighter. She did not finish that opponent. So if you calculate all those together, she's 9-0 in MMA. She has never finished an opponent. I don't think she's going to finish Angela Hill. Angela Hill's only 2-0. She really has very little experience, but she's a Muay Thai striker. She's 12-0 in Muay Thai.
She's a striker?
She's a striker.
So she could get some, just stand there and go back and forth, piling up those
Well, that is
points?
what I'm really hoping. With Tisha Torres, she's a striker by nature as well. I mean, I believe she has like a variation of a Taekwondo black belt. However, she chooses to put people up against the fence. Angela Hill, as long as she can keep the fight in an upright position, dance around, and use her strikes, I think she's not going to win the fight.
But for 8,000 or 4,200 on each side.
But for the 4,200, I'm actually sold on Angela Hill because it's just like, listen, keep this fight going the 3 rounds. If it's standing, land some elbows, land some knees, land some kicks. Just do your thing, girl. Do the best you can. If you win, great. If you don't, get me my 20, 30 points. I'll be happy.
Just don't get finished in the first round and you've already recouped your value.
And I really think that there's very little chance of her being finished in the first round. So I'm kind of feeling safe on that one a little bit.
Let's get to your DraftKings and Countermove team for UFC 188. DraftKings-wise, you're going Cain Velasquez as one of your favorites.
Yes.
You're going Tumenov as your other heavy favorite. And you're going Collard as the other heavy favorite. 3 players over $11,000. So tell me about the scrubs you're taking.
Okay, well, that's exactly it. At that point, you have no money. And as I mentioned earlier, earlier in the show, I said I'm going to go for it aggressively. I'm going to get the 3 guys that were expensive who I think are going to finish. Cain for $11,900. He's got 5 rounds to work with, and he's a stud. Albert, I think he's going to get a quick finish, so I don't mind paying that. Clay, if he doesn't get the finish, he's going to work his opponent. So those are my 3 expensive guys. Now, Chico Camus, $7,500. As we mentioned with Chico Camus, if he gets out-wrestled, he's going to get out-wrestled. However, if Henry Cejudo even thinks to himself, I want to work on my hands a little bit, Chico training at Duke Rufus's camp up in Milwaukee, Rufus Sport, he's a great striker. He's very versatile. He's very fast. He's a good scrambler. If he gets taken down, I think he can get back up. If he gets back up and he gets taken down again, he'll fish for a submission. Then he'll get back up. Then he'll land some strikes. Then he might get taken down.
That is points.
It's all points, and that's what I like from Chico Camus. $7,500. I'm not going to lie. The reason I had to take him is because I had no money left. But that's not the worst pick you could get. And below that,
but you feel so good with your core 3 guys that you think just with those 3 guys, you can get to 80% of the points that you need in order to cash, and you hope that these 2 can recoup the extra 20%.
Let's say they score low, but they have that, like we talked about with Ricardo Abreu.
35 points is all you need from each of them.
Yeah,
or even
he got 35 points. Everybody else, they can get finishes or they'll score well, and that rebalances itself out. Nobody's looking for a 5-man team that all 5 people are going to get finishes. That's possible.
And you especially can't afford it this week.
No, because the values are just very expensive. So with Chico Camus, it's like, okay, I think that he's going to be okay now. And then, I know this sounds crazy, but Fabricio Werdum, the same reason. $7,500. Cain is Cain. Cain should take him. Cain should beat him up. But Fabricio Werdum has much improved takedown defense. He much improved striker under Rafael Cordero up at King's MMA. And his jiu-jitsu is completely off the chart. So if for whatever reason, Cain Velasquez is pounding on him and he ends up getting triangle choked or something, well, I'm going to be able to score the points on that end. And if Cain Velasquez just takes him down and pounds him and it goes 3, 4, 5 rounds, then Fabricio Werdum's going to have his chance to score. Every round's going to start standing. Every round he's going to be able to land a couple knees, a couple shots. And if he's on his back, maybe he's going to fish for some submissions. If I was going to replace them, I got Nate Marquardt at $7,700, and I just want to point out Andrew Todd Hunter at $7,700. Avoid this guy completely, right? But Marquardt might be the guy that you insert into this lineup. However, I'm feeling Fabricio Werdum and Chico Camus.
Countermove, you're keeping with your core 3 of Velasquez, was it Tumenov?
Yeah, Albert Tumenov.
Tumenov, sorry. It looks like a U here, not an O.
That's my chicken scratch writing.
Yeah, excellent. And then Clay Collard at $4,800, and then you're going Angela Hill. We talked about in the women's fights. If you expect it to go to the decision for $4,200, that's basically free money that they're giving you away, where you can have some salary cap relief. But you go Gilbert Melendez at $4,800 to fill out the team. Yeah,
Gilbert Melendez, as we talked about, him and Eddie Alvarez, it will be a close fight. But Gilbert's so well-rounded in that he can get takedowns, he can land strikes, his cardio is fantastic. And if you look at his recent history, the guy's a stud. Against Diego Sanchez, he didn't get the finish, but it was such a wild fight, he was going to score some points. And the fight against Benson Henderson, who's the champ at the time, I thought Gilbert won over the course of 5 rounds. The judges didn't agree with me, but I thought he won. And in his last fight against Anthony Pettis, who is at the time the champion, he won the first round and then got choked out in the second. All that aside, I think he's going to be able to pour it on and then be able to score. So $4,800, don't mind that. Angela Hill, now, it was a situation where I actually only had $4,200 left.
There you go.
But regardless, I wanted her anyways because she was good value. She was going to allow me to afford my bigger players, and I think she'll be able to score. The only other person that I want to give a shout-out to is Charles Rosa. At $5,300, he is expensive. But I think he's got a softball matchup against Yair Rodriguez, his opponent. Yair Rodriguez is Mexican and is a tough champion. So the judges might screw Charles Rosa. Maybe. Charles Rosa is fantastic on the ground. He's good with his feet. He's good with his hands. If it stays standing, he's going to have the advantage. If it goes to the ground, he's going to have the advantage. Charles Rosa, I would like to say, is a must-have. but the value didn't really make sense for me, so I opted not to go with him. But if any player out there is thinking to themselves, I really like Rosa, I want to work on Rosa, I don't disagree with you. He might have a very big night.
Cody Saftig. Catch him on the Bookie Beatdown every Friday on the Fight Network and Fantasy Sports Network. You can follow it on Twitter at Bookie_Beatdown. I'm Pat Mayo, and I'll see you next time.